But away from that, Ghana will have to pay more interest to investors if it goes to the international market to borrow to finance the budget. That's according to the head of finance at the Valley View University, Dr. William Supra. The country's balance sheet, that is our assets and liabilities, is weaker because of our very high debt. International ratings agency Moody's has affirmed that Ghana's B3 long-term issuer ratings and also kept our economic outlook at negative. It attributes that to the high debt burden, continued weak debt affordability, the high gross borrowing requirement, as well as ongoing liquidity challenges. Dr. Prepar joins us via Zoom with more on this. We're so grateful, Doctor, you could join us. First of all, what's the basis to your session?
Good afternoon, and also I wish your viewers very well. The basis for this assertion is based on the fact that Moody's rating has put Ghana at a B3 and also a negative outlook. If you look at what Moody's is saying or the work they have done, they are saying that Ghana's bond, normally, let me give an explanation a little bit of the work they do. So they first look at our ability to pay our debt when they become due, and then the social outlook of the country. So with the ability to pay our debt, they see in the future there will be challenges for Ghana. Moody's is saying that from 2022 to 2025, Ghana will require about $1 billion every year to service its debt. Currently, the country debt exposure to GDP is above 80%. Which says that our balance sheet is not very strong to be able to pay these debts. And if next year, 2022 to 2025, the country requires $1 billion to be paying only debt, that is why I'm saying that our balance sheets or our books are not very good to support this payment. And it's the reason why Moody's puts Ghana bonds as highly speculative. When a bond is highly speculative, it means that the country must entice investors more to be able to bring in more funding when you go to the international market. So that is the first part of the issue. Our debt exposure is high, and the rate we are paying is also very high. And on the issue of the negative outlook for Ghana, normally the assessment is done on three main areas. First is the social side, the economic side, the environmental side, and governance side. So on the social side, Moody's is saying that Ghana has issue with housing infrastructure and then education. So you just see that the statistical service is reporting that there's high cost in housing, which is pushing the inflation high. So it's a confirmation of what Moody's is saying, and that's why we are saying that. And also, your housing is your greatest asset. So if you are having a high challenge in your assets, and this exposure is weakened, then the country's balance sheet is not very strong. What it simply means is that our infrastructure development is on the very low side. In the past, Ghana spent about 2% of our budget on our infrastructure development, which is not very good as a country. So the exposure on the social side is a negative effect. When it comes to the environment, we are aware of what is happening in the mining sector, our cocoa farming, the practices that farmers are using now is not very sustainable. The weather is, as you were just discussing, the weather is not conducive for us as a country now. So there's an anticipation that our food basket will suffer, which we have seen that the cost of food is one of the main drivers of inflation. And lastly, Moody's put that one also as very high. And lastly is governance. Moody's rated our governance system as moderate. When you say moderate, I mean because we changed, we have been able to change, voted and change government successively. And without major issues, they see Ghana as well stable. But we know what happened during the election times. And we are not anticipating that in 2024 there will be much issues. But the country needs to improve in terms of governance. The governance area cuts through a lot of issues, corruption issues, and the rest, which we know what is happening in the country. So it's a big issue for us as a country to be
Indeed.
paying 1 billion.
Indeed,
1 billion
and
cedi,
for those
1 billion.
watching, Doctor, the question remains: how do we fix this in the medium to long term? If we were to disaggregate most of the things you're stating and categorize them under those that can be mitigated and the unavoidable ones, how do we balance the risk? And of course, moving forward, how do we fix it from the medium to long term?
I mean, the first part, which relates to the debts that we have taken as a country, if we have to look at our debt profile and try to put in a proper portfolio to how the debts that we have taken this structure, where has the funds been spent, is a major issue. About 80% of the monies we have raised, evidence is that has gone into consumption, which is a major issue for us. So can we say that going forward, all the monies we will borrow from outside will go into investment that will repay itself, and also to increase our tax revenue collection, and that is where Ghana is lacking. I mean, if you check, only few people are paying taxes in Ghana. We are hoping that with the coming in of the Ghana card, where now we are seeing that we have about 19 million Ghanaians on that card as taxpayers. How many people of them are really paying taxes? That is where the government must focus on. There are a lot of artisans, in my opinion, who do a lot of work, collect a lot of high charges, but they don't pay taxes. Can we have an approach or system to be able to ask these artisans to pay taxes so that our revenue will improve?
So spreading the tax nets to improve revenue mobilization. You also indicated that the authorities must rationalize expenditure and do more to grow the revenue base from about 13% to GDP to 20%. How do we do that?
This is very critical. I mentioned that 80% of especially the money that we have borrowed have gone into expenditure, and they are not, let me put it, recurrent expenditure, paying salaries and the rest. Government must make sure that once the revenue mobilization goes up, we put in a lot of strategies to reduce the excesses in making unnecessary payments. Though we have the Financial Management Act, which government must follow in making payment, but we see that there are some loopholes. So government must strengthen the hands of the Financial Management Act and make sure that we do the full implementation. Recently, we've noticed that, I think it was also Parliament mentioned it, some of the government agencies and schools or institutions do payment outside the Financial Management Act. And the Financial Management Act put a system in place where all payments are done according to budget. But we see that this is not strictly followed. So we have to make sure that this act is strictly adhered to, and those in governance or in heads of institutions follow the Management Act of making payment. And the last one is procurement. We have a good procurement law, but this enforcement is also a problem. So as a country, if you are not able to control follow the procurement law, and that is the only way to control the expenditure. There are two ways, procurement and budget. So the budget is handled by the Financial Management, and the Procurement Act also take care of that. Great. So as a country, we have to make sure that we follow them. There's evidence of a lot of sole sourcing nowadays, and you cannot get value for money in such activities, and that is why we have high expenditure as well.
And we shall see how the outlook looks like. Of course, we're so grateful, Dr. Williams Prepare, Head of Finance at the Valley View University, for your analysis on Moody's outlook on Ghana.